Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Cohen, and I am going to be your instructor for this course, COMM 270, which is called Presentational Speaking. It used to be called Public Speaking, but we changed it for some reason. I have some theories about that, but it's not really important. So we are obviously not meeting in person this week. And the reason that I do that is because a long time ago, I got just really kind of fed up with oh, it's the first week of class, it's syllabus day, so a lot of people will show up, and that's really great and helpful, and they get to hear all of the wonderful things I say on the first day of class. And then there's like this whole other contingent, usually small, who maybe they decide to add the class later or just not show up on syllabus day, and then they show up the second week of class, and then they want me to repeat everything. And I was just like, what with the wonderful world of technology, what if I just started recording everything that I would say on the first day of class, and then anybody can watch it no matter when they add the class. In fact, you can rewatch it during the semester if that makes you feel good. So I am going to be going through the syllabus just like I would if it was our regular syllabus day, and then I'm going to do a really short lecture. You can't really call it like a real lecture, but I've got PowerPoint slides, so it's kind of a lecture, and I'm going to show you give you some tips for picking out a topic for some of the presentations you're going to be asked to give this semester. Well, really, all of the presentations. I'll get there in a minute. Let me go ahead. I'm going to share my screen here. Um, and bring up the syllabus first, though. Let's just cover like the important things here. So, you can, of course, access this by going to eCampus, which I encourage you to do. You probably had to go to eCampus in order to view this video, although not necessarily. But so, all right, you're already ahead of the game. Um, but first things first, like I said, and this is, sorry, I've got First things first is I work from home a lot because I like being around my animals. I have a lot of animals. This is one of them. This is Bluma. She's one of my pugs. The other one is, I don't know if you can see, he's on the floor there taking a nap. And then out there I got a bunch of chickens. I don't know if you can see. I got chickens and I've got a big Great Pyrenees named Jolene. You'll probably hear her barking. But so really a lot of times I am at home because I love being at my house. And the reason I'm bringing that up right now, aside from the fact that I like to show off my animals, is because I want to just talk about office hours for a minute. I do have office hours, and office hours, for those of you who aren't familiar, the whole concept is that professors have a certain window of time when they are going to definitely be in their office so that you can drop by and get in touch with them and talk to them about whatever you want. And a lovely um, it's a lovely idea in theory. Personally, though, I think it's a little bit archaic. It's from a time when before we even had things like email, and professors were really hard to get in touch with. Now, I know some professors still are hard to get in touch with. I'm not one of those. I'm actually really easy to get in touch with. I check my email pretty obsessively, although not so much on the weekends. I've gotten better at that. But the point is you should be able to reach out to me and set up an appointment. We could do it on Zoom. We can do it in person. We can do it during my office hours, or we can do it outside of my office hours. Like, I can find something that works for you. I have these office hours, Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Oh, and actually, I'm going to change this. So actually, I'll just go ahead and tell you, I am going to have office hours on Tuesday and Wednesday, but on Wednesday, I'm going to change it from 2 to 3:30, but whatever. You'll see that in the syllabus. My whole point is it shouldn't really matter. What I would like you to do, even if you want to come by my office hours, is give me a little bit of a heads up. The other nice thing about doing that is that way, if somebody else has told me that they're going to come by, I can be like, hey, I don't want you sitting around and waiting. So, maybe come 15 minutes later or something like that. So, but bottom line is, I just want you to feel like if you need to meet with me, we can work it out. You don't have to be committed to those office hours. And like I said, it is true. I am home a lot, so the office hours are quite special, but I'm also happy to come on campus depending on what else is going on. And we can meet in person too, even if it's not during the office hours. You also, for this class, have several wonderful breakout lab instructors. Some people call it a studio. I prefer lab. I could get into that, but whatever. Um, All of these TAs here are wonderful PhD students in our program who have a lot of skills in public speaking. And the whole way that this class is set up is every Tuesday we're going to get together and I'm going to do a big lecture with everybody in the whole class. But then on Thursdays, you break out into smaller groups, labs, whatever, and then you have your own special tutor or whatever. And that is, there's Jolene. Okay, now she's going. Um, what's going to happen is this is where you're going to actually give the presentations. This allows us to have a smaller group so that, not everybody is, really, so we don't have to take up a lot of class time when everybody's giving their presentations. You have anywhere between, I don't know, 15 and 25 people in the breakout sessions. So that will just allow us to have a more intimate setting, but make sure you know which section you're in. You registered for this when you registered for the class. You had to like register for my class, but then you also registered for like a subsection, and you need to know where you're going there. And you'll see, I hate this, it really is not ideal, but so even though the lecture is going to be in Field Hall, um, the breakout sessions are just scattered throughout downtown campus, so they're going to be all over the place. So I just want to make sure that you know where you're going, and it's not going to be easy for me to just like tell you you're all going to one place because you can see some of you are going to be going to Armstrong, and some of you are going to be going to Chitwood, and some of you are going to be going to Woodburn, and all that stuff. So um, make sure you know where you're going. Okay, just skipping right along here. So, another really important thing to know is what to do about your textbook, and I have good news on this account. There is two textbooks that I use in this class, but they are both free, and they're what we call an open educational resource. And so, actually, if you just jump ahead way back here, this is the course schedule and everything. I have all these different chapters assigned, and I've put links to these two different textbooks that I draw from for my own lectures. And if you want to read any of that content, you can click on it right here. And I say the word if very deliberately, okay? You're not going to be tested on anything in the books. There aren't even exams in this class. So well, I mean, not in a way. The the readings are optional. I don't actually expect you to do any reading in the class. This you can look at all of this as being pretty supplemental. If I talk about something in the lecture and you want more information, this is where you go and get it. But again, you don't have to decide whether or not you want to buy the textbook or not, because it's just online for you. Now, I also occasionally have used these other books here to add some supplemental material, like when I'm trying to find out more information. I want to spend a good amount of time, for instance, on visual aids this semester, and your textbooks had some stuff, but I wanted to go find some more in-depth stuff. So I do have some supplemental readings there. These aren't necessarily going to be free, so what I had to do was Xerox them, and you can find them on eCampus, though. Um, Okay, on speaking of eCampus and technology, for the most part, you're not going to like need to buy anything for this class, but there is going to be a presentation that you give that is going to be on Zoom, just like I'm using to record this current lecture right now. So um, you do need to make sure that you have access to like a functional video camera that you can use to join an online session on Zoom. We're going to be talking about this later. You might want to make sure if you don't already have one, you have like a ring light or something like that, because we're going to be talking about some of these aesthetics things. Although if you don't, there are other ways around it. We'll talk about how to light your face and stuff. But there might be small things like that, but really there's not a huge investment for this class, so you're not going to need to put out a lot of money. Um, however, another technological sort of demand of the class is if you don't have presentations during those lab sessions, then a lot of times what you're going to be using that time for is to workshop your presentations. So if you're maybe going to be working on workshopping your speech outline or working on a PowerPoint presentation or things like that, for that reason, if you have a laptop or tablet that you can work on, we're going to ask that you try to bring that to your lab every Thursday if you can. So just keep that in mind. It's not like you're going to get in trouble if you don't bring it, but it's just not going to be as helpful and productive for you. So try to get in the habit of bringing a laptop or some sort of tablet device to class every time you can. I'm so sorry. That's her snoring. It's not my tummy or anything. I'm actually really glad that she's calmed down though. It's just like a weird noise though, I realize. It's kind of like white noise though. Hopefully it's soothing, just some, pug muzak. Okay, so let's see, moving right along here. So I'm just going to go down and just show you, we can talk about these a little bit more specific, although I'm not going to get in a ton of detail because you can get all the details for these assignments in more depth on eCampus, but I just want you to see how everything's laid out here. This is all the assignments for the class this semester, all right? One of the first things you're going to do this week before we even meet in person, you got to do this syllabus quiz. It's going to test you on stuff I'm talking about right now. There's also this survey that I need you to do. You see, there's a survey here, and then there's survey two. That's because you're going to do the same survey at the beginning of the semester and the end of the semester. There's a link to that on eCampus. Um, I'll remind you at the end of this video. But let's talk about like the big things, okay? So you, you have right here four different presentations. These are the presentations you're going to be giving this semester. The first one, and you can kind of tell by how the points are distributed here, the first one is kind of like a little mini presentation. And then you've got your first big presentation, which is going to be just this, a 5-minute in-person speech a few weeks after that. And then you've got another presentation that's going to be very similar to that one, except it's going to be on Zoom. And during those times, I'll get to this in a second, we're going to be having class remote. You're going to need to attend your class from some sort of place that you have like a quiet place that you could do a presentation and listen to other people's presentation, but we're not going to be doing it on campus. And then at the very end, oops, you have like another slightly smaller speech, but that one's going to be scripted. And you're also going to have a little question and answer session afterwards where you have to kind of answer impromptu questions. So you're going to be able to prep the first part of it, like down to like verbatim everything you're going to say, but then you're going to also have to be prepared to to answer different questions and not know the questions ahead of time. Okay, so I have up here, if you add up all of those points for these presentations, it's a little over 51% of your grade, so about half. So what's the other half of my grade? Well, the other half of your grade is what we call listening and processing activities. I call them LPAs. And this is just basically what you do if you're not doing presentations. Every time you come into my lecture, I'm going to have these PowerPoint slides up and everything. And when you come in, I'm going to give you a sheet of paper that has questions on it. You can call it a quiz if you want, but really it's to help you follow along in the lecture. You can usually get most, if not all of the points every week if you just listen and fill in the right answers as I'm giving them to you. It's to encourage you to kind of like listen to what's going on, and occasionally I'll ask you to reflect on certain things, hence the processing. Um, so the nice thing about these is I'm going to be counting 13 of them. But if you look, like let's just assume, going back to the schedule here, that for each lecture and some of these breakout labs, you're going to be getting an LPA. If you count all these, there's about 17 opportunities to do an LPA, but I'm only counting 13. What that means is if you miss class and you don't get credit for an LPA, it doesn't count against you. You'd get like a 0 technically, but I'm going to drop that 0 at the end of the semester if you have more than 13. So that's how you have sort of flexibility of showing up or not. Like if you don't show up to class, you can't make up any sort of LPA, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to hurt you if you don't do it. I have a lot of, I guess you could say, freebies that are built into the semester. So that's a really important thing to know. Um, Like I said, you can read more about what these different presentations that you're going to have to do consist of. If you go back here, I have little um, descriptions, but really the most detailed information that you're going to get is posted on eCampus. Not only do I have really detailed information about how you're going to do these presentations, I also have the score sheets posted that you're going to be graded on. But I have good news about that too. Um, the way it works in this class is we've tried to design it in a way that makes you feel like there's lower stakes for the presentations that you give because really this is an introductory presentation class. It's not like an expert advanced level debate class or anything like that. A lot of people are giving these types of presentations for the first time, and our goal is to make it as comfortable as possible, even though a lot of you are, understandably, and we'll talk about this when we get in class, kind of uncomfortable getting in front of an audience. So to sort of alleviate that, we have, and did I write this down? I can't even remember now. Respectful listening. I don't remember. Maybe I didn't. Well, it's fine, but you'll see this information is on the ooh, I just found a typo here. Look at me, lap. Um, this information that I'm about to say is on your is on eCampus if you look even on the score sheets. Essentially, we're going to give you real feedback and we're going to tell you what points you would have gotten on your delivery. But so long as you do a decent presentation, like you just put in the effort and you turn in all of the things that we've asked you for, everybody should get 100% of points on the delivery portion of their speech. The only stuff that you'll get like a real grade for are things that you can prepare ahead of time. So for your first big speech, we're going to ask you to turn in an outline. That's going to be really graded. But let's say that you turn in an outline and, I don't know, you get most of the points on that. And then let's say that like your speech is pretty good, but maybe you stuttered a lot or you couldn't remember all the things you were going to say. So like, or maybe you go over time, like there's like slight little problems with it. We're going to give you good feedback on that, but you'll still get full credit for that. Because again, so long as, we see that you're taking it seriously, we think it's like an accomplishment just for you to be getting your feet wet and all that stuff. So that's the nice thing. I like looking back at all of these points. What I want to impress upon you is like it's true. It's not that difficult to get an A in this class, even like a high B. Most of the time, and I can say this because I've taught the class once, but I do this kind of structure in other classes too. If people aren't getting an A in the class with this sort of grading structure, it's because they're just not turning stuff in, and that's like a different issue. But for the most part, what we've tried to do is structure it so that so long as you're able to give all your speeches, and you put, good effort into trying to do it as well as possible, then you can get most of the points for most of these presentations. Um, oh, goodness. See, I don't know if you can see it now. There's my dog. She's actually kind of chasing us again. I know it's not really what she's supposed to do. She's supposed to guard them, but we call it the witching hour. I'm recording this video at like 4:30 and I don't know, she goes a little nuts balls. Okay. Okay, so back to all of it. So some other like important issues now that we're like into the policies and stuff. So as I already mentioned, so for those I'm going to say like daily activities, those LPAs, again, we're not going to accept late LPAs. It's like an attendance activity. You're either there to get the points or not, but if you're not, that's fine so long as you don't miss too many. Um, Here's a little exception though. So attendance on those days in that way is not mandatory, but on speech days, attendance is mandatory. If you are scheduled to give a speech or other people in your lab section are scheduled to give a speech, you must show up on that day. We need an audience and we need to hold everybody to like the same basic standard. So, if you are not going to be able to come to class on any of the presentation days, there is an excused absence policy where you're going to have to like actually submit something to your to your teaching assistant and get permission. It's going to have to be legitimate and all that stuff. I hate that. I really hate dealing with student absences and stuff, but we need to make sure that we have sort of a fair and equitable attendance policy on those days to make sure that people show up. Um, and I just, sorry, I'm keep skipping around, but I hope this is a little bit helpful for you to see it. So you can see here, over, like, so I have all the readings and stuff. Here's how you figure out if it's a speech day or not. So these 2 days where it says informative presentations in person, those are designated speech days. You cannot miss those. Attendance is mandatory. Okay. Um, Fast forward to informative Zoom presentations. So those are the ones that are going to be remote. And you see classes remote, obtain a Zoom link from your lab instructor. So same thing, attendance is mandatory, but you're going to be attending via Zoom. So anytime you see it like in this deep purple or whatever, you've got to make sure that you can show up to class on those days. All of these other times are kind of optional because, yeah, like I said earlier, we'll be giving LPAs, but you can miss several LPAs without it affecting your grade. Um, so those are really the most important things. I think the other stuff is stuff that is certainly important. Otherwise, I wouldn't have put it on the syllabus here and everything, but it's not stuff that I really want to emphasize. I'll let you read it on your own. Actually, okay, I'll just say this because um, I do want to warn you that because I have all these optional assignments where I'm going to be dropping grades at the end of the semester and stuff like that, eCampus is not going to give you an accurate tally of the points you have. Like it just doesn't understand how things are. So if you've missed a lot of class, it might make your grade look worse than it actually is because it doesn't know that you can essentially do more LPAs to make up for it and stuff like that. So just use caution with that stuff. Okay, and the now I just want to, and I know this has already been pretty long, but hey, don't be so sad about it because at least we're at home right now, and at least I'm at home, and we're not sitting in class, so that's good. Okay, now I'm going to share my screen. Okay, hopefully you can see this. Okay, so what I'm showing you right now, this is just going to be, like I said, a quick lecture, but it's not really a lecture, to help you start thinking about the topic that you want to choose for your presentations. So I told you there are 4 presentations in this class. There's kind of a catch, though. All of those presentations need to be on the same topic. There can be slight changes in terms of how you approach that topic, but I want you to talk about the same thing throughout the semester. There are lots of reasons for that. I'll just give you a couple. One is that this class is designed such that it's actually part of a Speak Right core thing for Eberly College, where in order to be designated a Speak Right class, people have to be doing oral communication that they get feedback on and then can actually use that feedback to improve the next assignment they do. So if you do a speech on, I don't know, pugs and then you get feedback on that speech, and then your next presentation, you do a speech on a completely different dog breed. I don't know. Then you might not be able to integrate the feedback as well. And so, since part of this is supposed to be so that you're constantly improving, that's one of the reasons. The other reason is, and I feel more strongly about this now that I've gone through this course, is because a lot of people regret their presentation after they do it because maybe they didn't feel as well as they wanted, or maybe they realized, oh, the audience wasn't giving them the right response or whatever. And yeah, so it's easy to just say, I'll just change it, but that's not real life. I would much rather you have an experience where you get to talk about what you want to talk about. And maybe if it doesn't go right the first time, then you have to be creative in thinking about how to present the same material in a way that's more interesting to your audience. I actually think it's one of the most important things you could get out of a communication class. So I'm going to be a little bit strict about this, and I'm going to tell your teaching assistants to be strict, but the sky's the limit in terms of the types of topics you can pick. The only I guess you could say guardrails that we have on this is your speeches are going to be informative. These aren't going to be a, like other types of speeches that some other public speaking classes would have you do, or is like persuasive speaking, where you're trying to get your audience to go and do something, to go buy something, to go and vote, or whatever. These shouldn't be speeches where you're trying to like push anybody or persuade them to do anything. We're going to be engaging in informative speaking, where you're basically your job is to educate people, to tell them about something, not necessarily trying to move them in any direction. Does that make sense? So I've got it like you want to increase their understanding, raise awareness of something, right? So those are the types of topics we're trying to look for. Um, I guess I should have put this slide up there too, right? So it's different. It's different from persuasion. Now, could your informative speech persuade people? 100%. It's just how we want you to think of your goal. Okay. Your goal should just be about sharing pieces of information that people might not have had before, not trying to actually motivate them to necessarily do anything or to think in a different way. These are some examples, some words that'll tell you if you're on the right track. If you're trying to define something, describe what something's like, explain how something works, or even to demonstrate something. Those are all, think about it like teaching, okay? It's the same type of stuff that we would expect to happen in a classroom. I know that many people think that because I'm a college professor, I'm constantly spending my day brainwashing people and persuading people all the time. I mean, again, like I said, information can certainly be persuasive, but that's not my goal. So think about it like that. If you were teaching, if you were giving an instructional presentation, that's the type of stuff you're trying to accomplish. Um, the first speech, we actually call it the I'm an expert speech. And one of the things I really want to encourage you to do, although, I mean, I'm never going to know the difference. If you tell me you're an expert in something, I'm going to believe you. But do try to pick something that you already know a lot about. And the reason I'd like you to pick something that you consider yourself to be an expert in, and that could just be something it's like it's your hobby, so you know more about than than most people in the class about something. Um, this isn't supposed to be, none of these assignments are supposed to require a lot of research or anything like that. There's going to be a small research component, but we're hoping that most of you can just kind of rely on something that you have some sort of natural information about, so that you don't have to like reinvent the wheel and go find a lot of information on it. We're also hoping it'll be something that you're excited about, that if you're an expert in something, it's probably because you've already spent a lot of time thinking about it or teaching yourself about it. And it's probably something that you would enjoy sharing with other people. That's the idea. So try to think about something that, like, hey, I am an expert in this. Also, it'll enhance your credibility. So we're going to be talking a lot about ethos and kind of like, yeah, how to get people to buy into the idea that they should be listening to you or whatever information you give on a topic. And if it's something that you have some experience in or a lot of knowledge in, then that's you're on the right track. So as you're brainstorming topics, really be thinking about like what you're an expert in. And this is where I think it's going to take a little bit more workshopping. Maybe even after your first speech, you'll have a little bit more insight into this. But um, as you start thinking about what kind of topic you want to do, think about your audience. Your audience is going to be a class full of other undergraduate students. And you don't have to think about me as part of your audience. I mean, you can, but really think about like the majority of your audience, which is a class of other undergraduate students coming from various majors, by the way, from all different colleges across the university at various stages in their degree program. Um, and from all walks of life, pretty much, although they're all WVU students, start thinking about who are they, and let's say you already have kind of a topic in mind because it's something you really like. Start thinking about, okay, great. How can I make that interesting for them? And I hope that I say this a lot throughout the class. It's my goal to, but I'll just say it for the first time now. If you're thinking that, oh, I would like to do this topic, but I don't think they'd be interested in it, I disagree with you. Whatever topic it is, my goal this semester is to help you think about how to make it interesting to them. I think that if it's something that you're interested in, then there is some way to convince to convince this general audience that there's something they can be interested in about it too. But that's going to be part of the challenge. And that is something that is going to make or break, a good presentation from a bad presentation. But I don't want you to shy away from any topic because you don't think it could be interesting to your audience. I want you to instead have to think about how to make it interesting to your audience. And like I said, I really believe that it can be. Um, Okay, and this is just kind of like a preview. Like I said, the first speech is going to be like, I'm an expert in, you're just going to get up and you're going to kind of just give like a general overview of the general topic you're thinking about, but you're not going to have to do all of the nitty-gritty like you will for the next speech. It's kind of like an icebreaker presentation, really. It's like an introduction speech that you would do in, just like a regular class, honestly. You wouldn't even think about it as a presentation if it was in a different class, I don't think. We have a couple of things that we want you to hit. Like it's got to have an intro, it's got to have a body, it's got to have some sort of conclusion, but it's just going to be really quick. And then finally, and let me make sure it's like, oh yeah, yep, that is the last point I want to make about this. Is I do want you to try to stay away from non-controversial, like, or shy away from controversial topics. Try to keep this talk, like try to keep it relatively light. And the only reason for that is because I don't want you to have to worry. I don't care about controversy at all. In fact, I kind of love it. But the reason I think it's important is because I just want you to feel as comfortable as possible giving your presentation and not have to think about on top of everything, how you're going to like broach like a sensitive topic. Now, that said, I'll give you an example. Last semester, we had a woman who wanted to do a speech on suicide. And I like actually I did not have a problem with that at all. I just said I just you just treat it like you would like if you were a journalist and you were doing a story talking about suicide, you want to kind of give your audience a little bit of a trigger warning and stuff like that. Sorry, Jolene's at it again. Witching hour. It's like that's my cue to wrap it up. Okay. So anyway, just try to keep it as non-controversial. Oh boy, we're all getting really excited. Okay, and that is pretty much it. The only thing I want to say is make sure you go ahead now that you've watched this, do your syllabus quiz, and it'll ask you some questions about topic selection. Shh, almost done. It'll ask you some questions about topic selection, and that is due before we meet in class for our first class period that we're meeting in, which is going to be Tuesday, January 20th. So I will see you on Tuesday. Thank you for hanging in there. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person. Okay, bye.